then dismembered their bodies, boiling some of the skulls to preserve them. So far, only one victim has been identified, but court records...
Police have detained what is alleged to be a cannibal family. Police told RT that 2 Krasnodar citizens are suspected of killing them.
The police department continues to be flooded with calls from families with missing loved ones. The medical examiner says he expects to...
His victims like flies when they got in his way. Carefully planned murders that resulted in bodies and bodies and bodies.
That a living creature was sacrificed on the church's altar.
He was shot dead on Saturday by police because he was gnawing off another man's face.
Smiling man, what do you think you're doing? Get out of there.
The lead suspect is said to be a dead Caucasian male in a burgundy dress shirt.
I believe we've had enough of that. You see it all around you. That reality isn't what it used to be. The 5 o'clock news is a horror show in its own right. But these happy hypocrites are ever so polished with their blinding white smiles and false condolences. They almost make you forget. Forget what they just told you about those nice folks just down the street. They seem just like you. Such a tragedy. I'm sure they told themselves exactly what you are now. It couldn't happen to me. Not realizing until it's crawling through your window or beating down your door just how wrong you are. Yes, gripped with the all-consuming fear of eternal punishment, you live your lives to be worthy of the keys to the kingdom of heaven, making every effort to rescue your soul from that fiery lake of sulfur, that second death. In essence, believing bad things don't happen to good people. But it can. In fact, we'll make sure of it. Is hell not all around you like the air you breathe? He is, after all, the prince and the power of the air. Try as you may to deafen yourself, you still hear the weeping and gnashing of teeth echoing from that blazing furnace below you, filled with the faithful and faithless alike. No one man is spared its touch. So innocuous they may seem, your cities, their streets, their homes, none of them are safe from the touch of pure evil. Lest we forget Sodom and Gomorrah was once a city too, not unlike your own. A place that became so wicked it took only a passing glance to turn the virtuous to a pillar of salt. A place that God himself condemned and turned away from. What irreversibly corrupted the denizens of Sodom and Gomorrah? And most importantly, could it happen again? The answer is simple. You've seen them on a restless night out of the corner of your eye. You've passed them on the street as you've hurried home before sunset. You've heard their whisper in the dark. They may even wait at your doorstep. Be still before you call out who's there and they need to tell you. They are invasive creatures, and their mere presence will taint your existence. A host of beings that have penetrated the veil of your reality to feast upon your vulnerabilities. Their motivations may be unclear, but their stories are not. Come, my children of rot. Let heaven blast the night while we open up our pits of hell. Darken the room, and we shall commence. It began as only a scratching within the walls in 1931 at the Irving family's home on the Isle of Man. With each passing night, the scratching seemed to grow louder and more restless. Every effort was made to drive out what the family thought were rats. Traps were set, poisons laid out, and the walls were pounded. All did nothing to stop it. The father of the family, James Irving, in a moment of frustration, tried barking at the wall, hoping to halt the rustling. Instead, the unthinkable happened. A disturbing rumble came from within the wall, as something in it began shifting its weight. This creature, whatever it was, began barking back. The entity within the walls began mimicking all forms of life. Everything from a dog's mournful howling to the pitiful cry of a baby, until it began forming human speech. Before long, the entity was capable of speaking full sentences. In a shrill voice not at all human, it explained its form. I am a freak. I have hands and I have feet, and if you saw me, you'd faint. You'd be petrified, mummified, turned into stone or into a pillar of salt. I am not a spirit. I'm a little extra. An extra clever mongoose. The creature was seen only briefly by the family in fleeting glimpses as it scurried from crack to crevice, before disappearing into the plaster walls. What they did see bore a vague resemblance to a mongoose, but was not at all an animal known to man. This being that defied description insisted upon being called only Jeff. The voice coerced the family into a living situation, promising them good fortune if he was permitted to stay. The creature soon began demanding to be fed raw meat, and the family did so, suspending a small dish from a crossbeam in the ceiling. Though the entity was never seen eating the offerings, by nightfall they would have vanished. Jeff also expected to be entertained, spatting obscenities and growling when Mr. Irving refused to read his books or morning paper aloud. When the family was in his good graces, Jeff would whisper to them secrets of their neighbors and drag dead rabbits to their doorstep. A tally of 50 dead rabbits in all, their throats twisted and their bones snapped by Jeff's tiny hands. Having grown weary of his confines, Jeff instructed Mr. and Mrs. Irving to erect a partition in their daughter's room, so that he might sleep behind it, a spot the family referred to as Jeff's sanctum. Their daughter was troubled by the creature's endless gibberish, and tried resting in another room. Jeff became violent. The whole house trembled as the door to the room began being struck by phantom blows. I'll follow her wherever you put her, Jeff screamed long into the night. From then on, Jeff took on an even more sinister tone. Poltergeist activity plagued the Irvings' home. Heavy rocks were thrown by unseen forces, and the words spoke by Jeff all the while became more depraved. I'll split the atom. I am the fifth dimension. I am the eighth wonder of the world. I am not evil. I could be if I wanted. You don't know what damage or harm I could do if I were roused. I could kill you all. But I won't. When Mr. Irving tried reading his Bible aloud to keep Jeff at bay, Jeff retorted, Look at the pious old atheist reading the Bible. He'll swear in a minute. Exhausted by Jeff, the family asked what should happen to him if he should die. His response? To hell, to the land of mist. Mrs. Irving, after having been bitten by Jeff in hysterics, screamed at him, You are no animal. Jeff responded mockingly, Of course I'm not. I am the Holy Ghost. Harry Price, a renowned paranormal investigator, tried aiding the Irvings in their efforts to cast Jeff out. While visiting the home, Price noted unearthly screams and a thunderous knocking from within the walls. Price poured a plaster cast of a paw print left by Jeff, a paw print not known by any biologist who examined it. Activity continued to plague the family until 1945 with the death of Mr. Irving. That same year, Mrs. Irving and their daughter left the home, and their tormentor behind. A Mr. Graham purchased the house in 1947, unfazed by the local rumors about a being within the walls. Graham later claimed to have trapped and shot a strange creature he found near his home, a creature he said resembled a mongoose. Thankfully, Jeff's very resilient. In 1950, the sleepy rural community of Paradise, Louisiana was to become acquainted with its own horror, an apparition that bore no name. Only a solemn tune whistled in the dead of night, its gaze forever transfixed on Miss Jacqueline Caddow. Miss Caddow was only 18 when she heard the melody coming from beneath her window. Though she heard a man whistling a strange tune just outside, there was no one to be seen. As the sound faded away, it was always followed by a jovial wolf call. Miss Caddow was haunted by her strange admirer for months. Almost nightly she would hear the familiar refrain, and its origins remained unknown. Things were soon to take a chilling turn. when Miss Cadow's engagement to her lifelong sweetheart, State Trooper Herbert Belsom, was announced. The Phantom, undeterred, continued his evening outings to Cadow's home. However, his song had changed. Now the entity would whistle over and over Chopin's funeral march, creeping closer and closer to Cadow's window, so close that it must be seen, but wasn't. As the ditty drifted off into the dark, it would be followed by an unearthly guttural wailing. It seemed the lovelorn entity was broken-hearted. When Cadow wasn't being followed by the whistler, her telephone would ring late into the evening. When answered, a faint voice would whisper promises to kill Miss Cadow. Cadow shared her residence with her mother, who answered the Phantom's call. Between heavy breaths, he murmured, "I'll kill her. I'll stick a knife in her. Your daughter will never marry Herbert." Others claimed to hear the whistler, including reporters visiting the Cadow's home. Again, the dirge being whistled grew closer. The grounds were searched, and still the whistler proved elusive. The blushing bride-to-be was racked with despair and needed a reprieve. Cadow stayed with Herbert Belsom, attempting to outwit the entity. Cadow's mother received only one call that night. The voice on the other end, in hushed tones, said only this: "Tell Jackie I know she's at Herbert's house." Despite it all, Jacqueline Cadow and Herbert Belsom made their walk down the aisle October 1st of 1950. I hate happy endings. The local police in the following months tried squelching public fear by saying the Phantom Whistler case had been solved. With no suspects ever being identified and no evidence to work with, it seems it was an elaborate cover-up. What is it the police in Paradise, Louisiana is hiding? And is the Phantom Whistler still searching for a requited love? Perhaps he'll find it with you. As Halloween approaches, it is said that the barrier between your world and purgatory begins to lift. This creates a vortex for all manner of wandering spirit to flood your realm. In days of yore, offerings of harvest were made to these beings to keep their wrath at bay. Bonfires would be lit to mimic the sun and the might of growth, holding back decay and the powers of darkness. Costumes were cleverly crafted to serve a solitary purpose, to fool the spirits so that mortal man could pass amongst them undetected, and thus unharmed. Perhaps Provincetown, Massachusetts would have been wise to follow that example in the cold October of 1939. As days grew shorter and the shadows longer, something began preying on the youth of Provincetown. Children would ride home from school frantic and in tears. They claimed a great looming figure dressed in all black had chased them to their doorstep. Given the time of year, most parents dismissed their stories as overactive imaginations. But this creature proved to be much more than that. Mary Costa was walking home from work late one evening when she too spotted it, as it lunged from a hedge of bushes near City Hall. When the creature rose to its feet, it stood 8 feet tall, wrapped in a black leathery cape like bat wings. Its glowing blue eyes penetrated Mary Costa and seemed to look into the secrets of her soul. Its face, framed by large pointed ears, sneered at Costa as it sprinted away. Costa ran screaming to a nearby coffee shop. Several patrons came to Costa's aid and searched for the mysterious thing in black to no avail. As word spread in hushed whispers of this man-beast, it took on several names, the most infamous of them being the Black Flash of Provincetown. Police initially handled Costa's report as a Halloween prank gone awry. As more reports began inundating the station, no one was laughing. No one except maybe the Black Flash. In the reports filed, it seemed he relished in terrifying the residents, laughing wildly in an inhuman pitch and tone. Other callers said the figure was accompanied by a sound like that of a screeching insect, similar to the buzzing of a cicada. As quickly as he was spotted in one place, he was seen in another, lending credence to the belief that the spectral figure was indeed supernatural. Could it fly? Or could it transcend physical being and materialize anywhere it wished? The Black Flash made headlines across the country, doing nothing to help the already tumultuous year in Provincetown. Animal attacks and arson had plagued the city in the months prior to the Black Flash's series. As time went on, the situation worsened, and Black Flash headlines became more wild. One man claimed to have shot the Black Flash at point-blank range. The creature, unharmed, cackled gleefully and scaled a nearby 10-foot brick wall with ease. Another man said the beast had overpowered him in his own home, throwing him to the ground like a rag doll. Even the once skeptical police were said to have seen the thing as it prowled a schoolyard. As October drew to an end in 1939, so finally did the reports of the Black Flash of Provincetown. Just remember, my children of rot, October returns each year, and along with it comes the thinning of the veil. So too could the Black Flash of Provincetown. Even as I sit here now, clearly stating our agenda, you refuse to believe that with each passing day, we make your world our own, consuming your self-comforted existence with mayhem. Thankfully, your faith in us does not dictate whether or not we live. Not anymore. With each passing day, the carcass of humanity grows ever bloated, and my colleagues are circling the sky like vultures, waiting to pick the sun-bleached bones clean. The Dalby Spook, the Black Flash, the Phantom Whistler, they are but a few of the things that have joined me to begin the apocalypse of consciousness. Next week, you will have the honor of meeting more of them. Now you can feel it. The eyes glaring from their perch, their stare burning holes through you. Since you are now one of my children of rot, it is only fair to welcome you to the fold. Join my militia of malevolence, lest you become our next show's subject of interest. Only time and your convictions can say for certain. But might I warn you to err on the side of caution? As always, remember me as you scroll by. If you liked our show, then please subscribe, as we are now. So you must be. Prepare for death and follow me.